So we averaged in 2018, we had just over 200,000 recoveries in that year. And last year we had something like 276,000, so approaching 300,000 recoveries. And so that we get on average 757 recoveries per day, or at least they're not all recoveries. Some of them are vets logging in, to verify a chip or something as well. But that means that the chips are being sort of checked at least every 2 minutes.
Hello, humans and puggies. Welcome to the Pug Life Show, brought to you by Pug Parties, because your pug deserves to be the best dressed at the porty, and you can check out their outfits at pugparties.com. I'm your host, Donna, and with me are my puggy co-host, Rosie and Kenji, with their rescue foster brother, Buster. If there's one thing that gets me every time, it's a heartwarming Puggily Ever-After. Whether it's a rescue pug finding their forever family or a lost pug making their way back home. Just the thought of that joyful reunion gets me teary-eyed and makes my heart skip a beat. So when I had the chance to chat with Dr. Doug Black about one of Australia's largest pet registries, I couldn't say no. In this episode, we're diving into the world of microchipping and the incredible role it plays in reuniting lost pugs and other beloved pets with their humans. But before we zoom in, I want to remind you to subscribe to our newsletter in the show notes so you get advanced notice of our next episode and much, much more. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dr. Doug Black, who is a director of the Central Animal Records. Is it organisation?
Yes, it's a registry. Let's just call it a registry.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really do appreciate it, especially noting how busy everyone is at the moment with the Homesafe issue, which we will get to. But thank you for coming on the show today.
No problem, Donna. No, great to be here.
Oh, it's awesome. So first things first, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your fur family. It's okay if you don't have pugs.
I'm still on. You haven't muted me yet.
Yep, you're fine.
Right. Yes, well, as you can tell by the colour of my hair, I have a fair bit of age on me, but I'm a vet and always been involved in dogs and cats and that sort of thing. But here we go. I actually specialised in birds. Believe it or not. And I got involved in treating ostriches and ended up going all over the world and all over Australia. So, and that was 15 years of my life, full time almost. So, no one else was stupid enough to do it. So that's how I got thrust into the activity there. So, but that happened in the late 80s, and coincidentally, I was a partner at veterinary practice in Springvale in Melbourne back at that time, and I had two other partners, and one of the partners, who was also a birdo, he went to a bird conference in Hawaii, Donna, and came back with a microchip and a reader, which was nothing like the readers that we have today. You had to sort of strap this thing over your shoulder, and had this great
case.
Exactly, yeah. So it wasn't exactly the most mobile of things, but we sat around after David got back and we were sort of chatting about this and thinking, because it was really only designed for, or being used at the time for exotic pets in zoos, exotic animals in zoos, birds and things like that. So we sort of thought, this could be the answer to dog and cat issue, that we have when a dog or a cat is brought into the practice and it's injured and hasn't got a tag and we don't know who the owner is. So, we used to have to go through all of the issues as far as, ringing the council, putting an ad in the local paper, putting ads in the milk bar and that sort of thing. And if this dog's injured, all we could do was, relatively limited first aid and keeping them comfortable, So we just didn't know who the owner was, and sometimes we never found out the owner. In fact, a lot of the times we never found the owner. So we thought, man, we could use this microchip thing. That could actually be the answer. And so we decided we were going to go for that. And so we literally introduced this into Australia back in the 80s. And it took about 10 years before anyone believed us. We actually approached government very shortly after we started this idea. And within 6 months, the Victorian government they contacted us and said, "Oh, we'd like to meet with you and talk about this." And we thought, "Oh, yeah, this is really good." So 6 months in, we've got the thing up and running. And I remember this meeting. 3 of us were sitting in the office at the clinic, and these 2 guys came in and they said, "We're here to talk about this microchip identification that you're trying to get up." And I said, "Oh, yeah, this is good. Yeah, how can we help you?" And they said, "Well, you realise that the frequency that the chip's operating on is actually allocated for military and aeronautical use."
Of course.
Oh, really?
Oops.
Yeah. So we said, "Oh, what's that mean?" And he said, "Well, you can't use it." So I don't know whether they had visions of maybe pugs in
Dogs and
aircraft.
humans.
So anyway, we had to. That was 6 months in, and we had to ditch it all entire. Well, we didn't ditch it entirely. We just searched the world to find another microchip that had the frequency that was okay to use, and that's the one that we've used, Trovan from Germany, and we've been with them, well, since then. So, what's it, about nearly 35, 36, 7 years. So,
Well, I was just looking, as you were talking, because I remembered you had the website has the stats, and I just found them because it is incredible. 36 years in operation, 5.4 million pets listed, 4.1 owners listed, which says a lot about Australians and our love of our pets. 2.7 million pets recovered. That was actually the number that blew my mind. I've just been so lucky that I've never lost any of my pugs, but I hate the fact that I see on Facebook all the time, has anyone seen my pug, or random pugs just showing up in various places. And I think we will talk about some of the successful reunions, but I did see one there where it was like, I think there was a cat and a dog that had been missing for 10 years. And it
yeah.
was the microchip that got them home.
Oh, yes. When we first had our first recovery, we were over the moon, absolutely over the moon. But just to give you a bit of an idea, I actually ran these stats for you. So we averaged in 2018, we had just over 200,000 recoveries in that year. And last year we had something like 276,000, so approaching 300,000 recoveries. And so that we get on average 757 recoveries per day, or at least they're not all recoveries. Some of them are vets logging in, to verify a chip or something as well. But that means that the chips are being sort of checked at least every 2 minutes.
That is incredible.
One every 2 minutes. So, and that's just, we're obviously the largest registry, but they're incredible statistics. It really is. It's quite amazing. But it took a long time for people to believe that it actually was going to be a normal form of identification. Everyone thought that was ridiculous.
And as I was saying before we got onto the show, like, I've had 5 pugs. My first pug, Fat Dog, who I rescued from far north Queensland, I'm almost certain he had a microchip, but I've got no idea who it was with. My last 4 have all been with cars because they were Victorian based when I adopted them. And I just sort of think to myself, like, what would I have done if I had lost Fat Dog? And I was still in the Navy, so I moved from Cairns when I adopted him to WA for 2 years, and then I had to go to the Gulf for 6 months of that time. So he went to Victoria to stay with my sister for 6 months, and then he come back, and just all these places where I could have lost him. And not like, if I'd lost him, I would never have seen him again, to be honest. I honestly don't think, and I'm amazed at people who don't get chips. It's because it's not even that expensive.
No, it's not at all, no. It's and I think what you're saying really highlights the fact that there's so much value in having your pet on a national register, so
Mm.
there's 2 states in the country that only have a state-based registry. But we even recommend to those people, that's in New South Wales and South Australia, we recommend that they should also list their dog on, or dog or cat on a national registry. And that extra registration only costs $10 for the whole lifetime of that animal. So
Yeah.
there's no cost involved, but there's so many animals that move interstate, holidays or sale or, even straying and that type of thing if you're living near a border, theft, all of that sort of thing. So there's a lot of value in being on a national base register, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, when we Rosie, my current girl, I have Rosie and Kenji, and I was saying before Buster is our current foster. Rosie, she was a rehome. So I knew her previous family and they couldn't look after her anymore. And at the time, my pug Charles was pining for his brother. So it was a match made in heaven because they already knew each other. But Rosie's family, so I discovered when I rang cars, because of course here I am trying to transfer her chip online and it's coming up and saying something's not right. And so I thought, oh, this is just silly. I just need to talk to someone. So I ring the number and the lovely lady I was talking to on the phone, and she said, oh, the family that you're talking about, like I had all their details ready to do the transfer. She said, they're not actually the registered owners. And it was Rosie had actually been bred in New South Wales. And so there were a few more hoops that I had to step through. But I think the cost of having her transferred to me wasn't even that much more than if I just paid for the transfer. I think the transfer at the time was like $20 or something. Like
Mm,
it's such a small amount of money for an insurance policy, as I was saying before. It's actually probably the best insurance policy that a pet owner could ever have because it costs next to nothing and it guarantees that if they show up anywhere, it's a quick scan with a wand these days and they're home to you.
mm. Well, in actual fact, it costs nothing. So the only thing that we even charge a pet owner for is uh, the change of ownership, transfer of ownership. So
Mm.
if you actually have your pet on the register and that pet never changes hands, then the whole of the lifetime that insurance policy is really costing you nothing.
Mm.
We have a little bit of an odd situation in the sense that we sell the chip with a life registration to a vet. So the vet actually decides which register it goes on, yet the
Oh,
owner is the one who is going to sort of get most of that service,
benefit.
yeah, and benefit. But they don't get a choice in which register they're on. In Queensland, you can, if you're not happy with the register you're on, you can actually change it. It's legal to do that. In fact, it's encouraged, I guess, if for competition reasons and that sort of thing. But in Victoria, it's illegal to actually change your registry. So
Mm.
you're stuck with whichever registry your vet has chosen. And the vets choose register. I mean, we offer services to them and it influences why they chose that register. And that's, like what price for one. And
Mm.
to the cost of a microchip and a registration to a vet is only $10 roughly. So there's not a lot of cost to them either. But then they also have the ease of entering the data, whether they can enter it online or whether we do it for them or whatever, all that sort of thing. And then, how easily they can access the register, particularly after hours, if an animal's brought into them and they're trying to find the owner at that time. So, and obviously we offer 24-hour service for that and that sort of thing. So that's their criteria, but from a pet owner's point of view, that's a totally different thing. It's
Yeah.
what services can you offer? What extra features can you offer? I mean, some of those we'll charge for, but essentially the standard service where that data is available to any authorized person at any time. That's all given for nothing, and you can update your details, every day if you want.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you don't need to do that, but you can do that, and then there's no charge involved in that. So the only thing that we'll charge for is that change of ownership, and the reason being is that that's under legislation. It's a legal procedure, and some of them go ahead very easily and they're not complicated, but some of them, like you got a slight taste of that in that, well, the breeder never actually
Yes,
transferred
never
the
changed
ownership.
over. It was so random.
So you've got to go back that far, So, and unfortunately, one of the areas that we really have sort of problems with is if a partnership breaks up, and who's going to have the dog or the pet or the whatever, and I want it in my name, but my ex-partner is saying, no, it's staying in my name. And so we're in the middle of this sort of, great.
The push and pull.
Yeah,
Oh,
yes.
yes.
So those can then get incredibly complicated. And then, we have to wait for, legal advice or court orders and that sort of thing. So we do charge, but as you say, it's still less than $20 to do that. So.
Yes, and it's like the cost I've seen. I'm trying to think. I think I was driving to like Listerfield, so quite a ways, and there was a massive billboard on the side of the road. I think it was a couple of years ago now, and it was literally a sign saying, "Have you seen this dog?" And it was a huge picture of the dog, and there was a phone number and all this sort of stuff. And I thought, my God. And they were offering a reward and everything. And all I could think was, because I think in Victoria, it's law. You have to be your pet has to be microchipped. But I don't think it's law everywhere else. It's not compulsory in every state.
Well, pretty much now everywhere.
Is now?
It's been a sequential thing, but pretty much everywhere now it's a legal requirement to have your pet identified by microchip, or dog or cat only, anyway.
Yeah, thank God. Unfortunately, the problem is if someone takes your dog, then but I have also heard, even though technically it's compulsory, you can't use it as a legal means of ownership. So when it comes to recovering your dog, I've heard that urban myth, and I wanted to dissuade it or confirm it one way or the other.
So it depends on the state. Ultimately, it's probably the most reliable method of ownership, so they'll rely on that quite a bit. But sometimes in some states, ownership is, possession, basically,
Yes.
and how long have you had the dog and that sort of thing. So, but essentially most of the time, we've got situations like those reunions we've talked about after many, many years, the person that has the dog doesn't necessarily want to give that up. So that gets very messy and complicated, and hopefully, it can be worked out through mediation or whatever.
Absolutely. It is tough because they're part of your family. There's just, I mean, for me, they were always fur children, even before fur children was a popular name. Fat Dog had a better wardrobe than I did, and he knew exactly what we were doing based on the outfit that got pulled out. So he was a smart. The first 7 years of his life might have been a bit crappy, but I tell you what, his last 7 were pretty good.
Oh, well, my wife would probably say any dog would have a better a range of outfits than I have. So that's not saying much, Donna, for some of us.
I have to admit, even my partner, he's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Regiment. We're both retired military, so you can imagine he likes polo shirts, jeans, shorts, nice and easy. And unfortunately, really awful Hawaiian shirts.
He sounds like I'd get on well with him, to be honest.
I bought him a pug Hawaiian shirt last year just so that sort of I could at least tolerate one of the Hawaiian shirts. I've slowly dwindled them down over the years since we've retired. So his entire wardrobe is not Hawaiian shirts. It's horrible. Absolutely horrible. So I was going to say there was I had this question in my head and it completely evaporated. So as my mother used to say, it was obviously a lie. But whilst it pops back into my head, let's talk about Homesafe, because this has been in the news since I think about December last year.
A little bit early, but not much earlier. Yeah.
So tell us about Homesafe and how it's affecting cars.
Yeah. So there were 5 national registries, and Homesafe was one of them. Central Animal Records is our registry, and we were the first established, and et cetera. So we're bigger, and then, but over time, there's been a number of other national registries that have come into this industry, and based on state legislation, that everyone has to. We can't have a monopoly. It'd be nice, but we can't do it.
Make it easier.
Yeah, it would. But so they allowed other applicants to gain a license in Victoria and Queensland, and Homesafe started in conjunction with Queensland RSPCA back then, and got a license to operate as a national register license in Victoria and Queensland, but like the rest of us, available in all sorts of states and mentioned in legislation, not necessarily mandated in other legislation in other states. So they came along, and everything sort of was going smoothly. But I guess the other thing that we were conscious of, all right, if there's going to be more than one national registry, we as a group decided we need to have some way that it appeared or it functioned so that it was virtually functioning as one registry. So what we did was we introduced a thing called pet address, and so you can just go to pet address. We fund that. The national registries fund that every year, and all it does is it just interrogates all of the registries and immediately then tells you where that chip is registered and gives you a link or details to contact that register. So essentially that means, as long as you know where pet address is, just put your chip number in, it'll tell you which register it's in. And so Homesafe was part of that along with the other registries. But then we found out in November that there were some significant financial issues happening there, and Homesafe was put in hands of liquidators, and we were approached by those liquidators shortly afterwards, and then we realised what had happened. Unfortunately, the director of Homesafe left the country. I don't know why that would happen, but he's left the country and he's not communicating with everyone, so that made it very difficult. But that's all kind of background. But the important thing is that the Homesafe data is still accessible through their website, and in the meantime, there's a lot of meetings and I guess plans going on to as to what happens to that data. Victoria and Queensland have a legal right to their data because it's in the legislation. So Victoria's already acquired that data, and it's going to be migrated into registry, Central Animal Records. So we're Victorian based, I guess, but we went through a expression of interest process for that. And so we'll be incorporating all of the Victorian Homesafe data into our own registry, and all of those owners will be contacted and issued new certificates and all that sort of thing without any cost to them.
Yeah.
And
nothing happens to the microchip. It's the numbers transferred, so they don't even have to take it into the vet.
No.
It's literally something will arrive in the mail.
Yeah, it's just that will take over the management of that data, and it's actually, silver linings. It's a good opportunity for people to say, oh, okay, well, actually my phone's not up to date.
And everything too.
Yeah. So we'll have, that data will be, a lot more accurate maybe than it was just sitting in Homesafe for quite some years. And I guess on that line, I'm sort of jumping here, Donna, I'm sorry,
That's
but
right.
that is an important thing is, like with all of the services that we offer in terms of trying to reunite animals with their owners, the critical factor is that the data is accurate, and it's current. So what we do, I think it's unique to our registry, is that, anyone that's got their email registered with us, which essentially is quite a large majority of them, but they will get an email every year from us with a snapshot of your data.
I got mine 2 weeks ago.
Oh, did you? Oh, okay, yeah.
It was actually what reminded me about chasing up with you guys to come on the show was,
right.
oh my God, it's that time of the year already. It goes by so quickly.
So that's on the anniversary that that animal has gone on. So in your case,
Yep.
you'll probably get 4 from us or whatever. So, apologies already, but
No, that's okay. Well, actually, because the other thing is it also you do very kindly ask if your pet has passed in the previous
mm,
12
mm.
months. So that,
Oh,
was actually when I lost Charles, it was one of those things I just said that was the trigger of, I forgot all about letting you guys know that Charles is no longer around. So
Donna, so I've got to ask, one of the things I'm so proud of one of our staff members who put this together, but he put together a little tiny video clip called The Rainbow Bridge, which is a poem that we've used in vet practice many,
yeah,
many times. And we use for, sort of sometimes communicating with some of the owners that have brought their pets in to be euthanized. And Reese put this together, and gosh, it's just such a great thing. So you should have got a link to that. I'm not sure whether you
I think
clicked it.
Charles passed away a couple of years ago. So
Oh,
I
okay. Well,
may
maybe.
have, and I just completely missed it, but it's very
Yeah.
thoughtful either way. As I said, it was very kind, as I said, very kindly done. It was kind of like a way of saying, just let us know if
Uh,
they're no longer with us. Otherwise, that's great. Just so yes, I can confirm the emails absolutely come through.
well, obviously we're all pet owners, pet fanatics, and
Yep.
everyone on the staff, so it's really important to us, like that. We know just how tough that can be, when you lose one of your pets,
Maybe.
and the last thing you want is some registry going, oh yeah, just you know,
Hit the button.
tick this box, see you later, But so it is important to us that we're sensitive to that, and yeah, if you get a chance, I think you can link to that Rainbow Bridge video.
I will have
It's
a look
just
at it on
beautiful. It really is. It's
yeah,
on
I
YouTube, I think,
just
too.
the, I love the poem.
Mm.
It's such a lovely way to memorialize someone's pet that makes it unique to things that are done for humans. So
Oh, well, you'll see that in video form. It's using those words, but crikey, I almost get emotional every time I
I know,
see it. Anyway,
I do cry myself. I am gonna make a note because I will share it in the podcast Facebook
Oh,
group
yeah, great.
so everyone
Okay.
can see it.
Oh, if you
Um,
can't find it, I'll send you the link.
yes, please, that would be awesome. So probably the key thing with the Homesafe ID challenge, I will say, is that Victoria's pretty much, thankfully, the government has made it pretty simple.
Mhm.
Other states, not so much. So Queensland, they're still working on it?
Queensland will follow Victoria, and I'm not sure what they're going to do with the data yet, but they're certainly following that lead, and they're talking to the people that have got control of that data as well. So that it's the other states other than Victoria and Queensland that's still something to be addressed, and we're really not too sure what will happen with that yet. But we're lobbying for something to happen to it. That's for sure. To save people having to re-register their animals, but at the moment everything is still secure, and even if you know that you've got your animal listed at Homesafe in Victoria and Queensland, it'll be transferred to a new register. But if you're aware of that and you're in another state, it probably is wise to transfer to one of the other registries,
Mm.
to
'Cause
to
you were
avoid
saying
issue.
before 30th of June is the cutoff. The
Well,
website you don't believe will be operational after the 30th of June for HomeSafe?
I'm going to be a bit pedantic and say that it is operational till the 30th of June, and after that, we're not sure whether it'll be continued on further from there.
Yeah.
Because the costs involved in maintaining
Maintaining
a
it,
website
absolutely.
is not massive, but so it's possible that a solution will be to have that data accessible ongoing past the 30th of June. But we know that is at this stage anyway a little bit of a critical time point.
Mm.
So we'll wait and see from there.
Yes, so Pug Pawrents, if you're not sure, jump onto the CARS website. There is a HomeSafe link with all this information, including the pet address link, so you can check and see if you're not 100% sure. And then if you are home safe, do something about it. You've basically got 3 months pretty much to get it done. And as we were sort of talking before, the cars team were kind of caught unawares. So you've caught up, but there was a hell of an influx initially.
Sure was. Double the number of already busy phone calls that we get. The staff have done an amazing job, to go from, I think I mentioned to you earlier, from 200 to 500 a day phone calls, let alone all the emails and that sort of thing that were coming in. It's been a challenge, let's say, Donna.
It's a good start to 2025, that's for sure. No, they're just, as I said, the few times I've been on the phone, your staff have always been absolutely amazing. So you can definitely tell that they're pet owners because they just get it. There's no comment of it's just a dog or it's just I don't have cats. So, and that was actually the question I was going to ask before we got onto the Homesafe, which is probably something that people's minds are running through. Who gets microchips? So is it just dogs and cats, or do birds and lizards? And I'm amazed at what people have as pets these days.
Yeah, so I'm less than amazed in the sense that I'm actually a member of that unusual,
the ostriches,
exotic and avian pet group. So yes, it is amazing. Like, gee, to see, and some of those vets are just doing amazing things, like operating on frogs and spiders, and it's just incredible. It's
spiders.
Yeah. So anyway, yes, pretty much anything that's
anything that can take a microchip.
Yeah.
Oh, so there's actually no limit. So I
and
have a
we've got
pet salamander. You could technically microchip it.
Yeah, we have. We've got numbers of axolotls that are chipped.
That is incredible.
Pretty much. Just about anything. Size is a limitation, I guess. But the smaller chips now, they can be like, even in some of the smaller birds. I was implanting chips into birds the size of finches. So you'd anaesthetise those and not put a great big needle in, but just do it surgically. Just introduce it into the site. But you wouldn't be. I can't think of too many species where they haven't tried to chip them.
Because I have to admit, my ignorance is it was a kind of just for dogs and cats. But as we were talking, that was why I said the question just slipped my mind, because I thought to myself, I wonder if you could do it for anything else. Like, really, is there a limit? So that's incredible. People who don't have their salamanders or anything, or their birds, not microchip. And I can imagine a bird would have a greater chance of getting away than one of my pugs, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think the issue there, obviously, there's not going to be too many salamanders or axolotls that are going to go straying anywhere. But there are a lot of birds that do, so they escape and that sort of thing. And I think with those exotic pets, probably the critical issue there is actually proof of ownership. So, if someone's found an animal, then, or they've stolen it or whatever, that chip will always link you back to the ownership of that animal. So it's a very, very strong argument, that you can get, often dearly loved pets, like, some of those bearded dragons and things like that. People are just as devoted to those as they are to any dog or cat. So it's a critical thing. It's I used to sort of be surprised about it, but people bringing in a canary that may have cost them $5, the money value is irrelevant. So they bring them into a vet clinic to have anything that would help them and save them. So yeah.
No, that is incredible. As I said, other than Rosie being a rehome, I've only ever adopted rescues. So and I would not give up any of them in a heartbeat. But I can, it's sort of working with pug rescue. It is quite difficult when people are surrendering dogs that they don't want or have mistreated, and then to turn around and say that they want them back. It's just, it's sort of like, really? No, not going to happen. Luckily that hasn't happened to me. But to be honest, as when you were talking about before about people separating and then obviously having to deal with the fur children visitation rights, Andrew reckons he's got like the perfect solution to this. One at one end of the house, one at the other end of the house. And whoever runs to the other one first, you're the one that gets that pug. And I'm like, I do all the feeding. Right. So I think I'm going to win, but I have to admit, Rosie is a daddy's girl. So I could see her standing in the middle thinking, who's going to give me what I want the most?
Yes, food is always an incentive.
Food is, yes. And it's why I'm also, even though they are microchipped, which is very important, and they don't get to go outside without one of us with them, I don't think they'd run away either. Like the likelihood of a pug happily leaving a family that loves them and feeds them every day, they know where their bread is buttered.
Mm.
They
Yeah, I guess the issue often is something out of their control. So, some of
Yes.
them, I think you mentioned one of your your pugs has got an anxiety issue, and
Yes.
in when there's fireworks or electrical storms or whatever. Man, I've seen one dog. I remember that took me 3 hours to stitch this dog up because it went through a plate glass window in a electrical storm. So just from the thunder. So yeah, then even though they know where their bread's buttered, they're just panicking at that point and just running and running and running, and then they're lost and whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a situation that's often really unpredictable.
Yeah, and it's horrific to even think about, let alone experience. But yeah, Kenji used to be deathly afraid of thunder when he first come to us. We've got him to a point now where he still barks and approaches it reasonably well, but there's thankfully no more sort of that whole white knuckle terror, but it took, and the worst part of it is you don't have thunderstorms every week. So it's not something that you can get them to reassociate some sort of positive thing. So it's taken us a couple of years, but I agree. If the front door was open, I reckon he would run outside to tell that thunder what to do. So
yeah.
it's
really, it's such a it's a real situation, and like it's one thing, God forbid, that your dog gets out and gets injured or worse by a car accident or something like that. But you're there and you're aware of it. But if your dog gets out and you come home and you have no idea where they are, and this goes on for years, you always wonder, where is he? Was he all right? And whatever. So it's a really sort of traumatic situation that we want to do something about, basically.
No, absolutely. Well, I have to admit, so Charles, who was my third pug, he was quite elderly, but he had OCD in the last couple of years, and we were really careful about. But he never used to leave my side, except this one time at playgroup. And everyone at playgroup still refers to the Charles escape incident, where I'm not joking. This pug never left my side and I'd had him for over 10 years. And this one day, for whatever reason, he decided to go for a walk. And because it's quite a large nature reserve with a number of car parks. And I was talking to another Pawrent. Rosie was off doing her own thing. And then, because I think you get so used to them being at your feet all the time. I just turned around and I went, where's Charles? And then I thought, oh, maybe one of the other mums is giving him a cuddle. And so I looked around and I'm like, no. And then I had that chest gripping moment of, oh my God, someone has stolen him, because I thought he was beautiful. So that meant that everybody thinks that he's beautiful, regardless of whether they think. And all I could think was, oh my God, someone has stolen him and taken him to I had catastrophized quite quickly, some sort of dog rink where he's going to be tortured by some nasty dog. And what had really had happened, and of course, because obviously everyone, all the pug parents at playgroup, we all dispersed out and just walked all the paths. And we were talking to people as we were walking past these paths. And we're like, have you seen a little pug? He's like this big. He's really old, so he's quite slow. He had managed to stealth past 3 families, just slowly wandering, and he'd gotten all the way to the furthest car park. And he was just standing at the pole, looking around, wondering where everyone was. And
What are you so excited about?
oh my God. And I got him home, and Andrew was like, "You are never to take our pugs ever again." And I'm like, I've just been traumatized, and that's your response?
Mm. It's amazing. Well, one of the gosh, that'd be one of the most common thing that we get people saying, "Oh, I don't need this," because my dog never gets out. My
Yep.
dog, and yet, then there'll be some incident. There'll be a tradie that comes to do something or whatever, or someone rude to me, and they leave the gate open unbeknownst to anyone.
Yep.
And that happens, or then God forbid there's the theft issue and that sort of thing. But all of those things are sort of just like what happened to you. It's you think, oh, that's never going to happen because he's always with me.
Yes. Never
And then
leaves my
next thing,
side.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
God. But speaking of reunions, like your
Mhm.
website is full of them, which is incredible. I mean, I can't remember how many millions it was. It was 2.5 million, I think, in the 36
Yeah,
years, which is
2.8. Yeah.
just
Mhm.
incredible numbers. What's the word I'm looking for? What's the atypical reason that the pet goes missing? Is it just they just happen to get out the door and just get lost?
So if you look at that reunion page,
Yes,
it's it
there are
is
a lot.
yeah, there are a lot, and those numbers, I must say that there's quite a few. What's the word? I've forgotten the word, but repeat offenders, let's say, so they might, be coming up to
They're
the
getting
10th
their
time.
money's worth.
Yeah, yeah. So there's some really good escape artists amongst them, but the vast majority of the reunions that you'll see on the website happen to be feline for
Yes, I
obvious
did
reasons,
notice, yes.
Yeah, so, often people, I know it's becoming a lot more common now with cat enclosures and that sort of thing, but, that's still not the norm, and so cats, have the ability to, roam and do all sorts of
Mm,
horrible things, but they also sometimes just wandering around, and they can get lost or anything like that. So the cats rate highly as far as reunions are concerned, and there's some amazing stories of those after many, many years. But dogs, we still get a large number of dogs that that get out on a daily basis, and they'll rate there too. And some of them are quite amazing. Some of those stories are just before the podcast. The staff were sending me a few reunions. We just didn't have time, but I was not to cast any dispersions on the pug breed, but I was going to try and run and I'm still going to get that done. Run a report on the registry as to how many pugs are
I
involved in
am
those
interested.
reunions. Well, I'll send you that, and once I get that, Donna, for sure. But I just didn't have enough time to get it done. So
No, it's quite you've been busy dealing with Homesafe, completely
yeah,
understand.
and it's a bit of a special report, so we don't. That's not one of our standard reports. The pug report, let's say.
I can't believe that, as I said, no, actually, I do believe it. How many pugs would seriously leave their families until you meet Charles? Um,
Well, I think yeah, probably pugs would be reasonably low on the list, I would imagine. But most of them, the you know the classic short dog syndromes, the Jack Russell Terriers and all these sorts of things that are pretty much full of themselves and don't listen to instruction.
I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I can take on the world. But so and we do run reports as to which breeds, higher represented and
Greatest
that sort of thing.
escape artists.
Yeah. But there was one there that really was amazing. And this was a situation where someone sent in this, we actually do a reunion of the year, and we give them
Yes.
some really great um, prizes for
Prizes.
that.
Just incredible, yes.
But we're just really to encourage people to share some of those stories because they're great from our point of view. Just to
Mm.
hey, the system really works well. We would like to think that most of them aren't terribly spectacular. So we would like to think that the system works so well that the dogs and cats are reunited within minutes,
Yep.
basically of arriving. But some of these stories are quite phenomenal. And this one, can I read you this
No,
one?
please, please.
I'll try to abbreviate because it's fairly long, but So this is from someone who says that their brother Theo suffered a stroke in 2012, and after 18 months of rehab, he was wheelchair bound and was recommended to get a therapy dog, and that's when he met Princess. And almost 2 years later, in November 2014, unfortunately, Theo, his brother, had another seizure and went to hospital. And when he returned, Princess had gone missing. And, obviously Theo was devastated, companion dog. And he searched for 8 months, posting everything everywhere, posters, calling pounds, etc., all that stuff that we were talking about earlier. And Princess was microchipped, and their mother was a second contact. Anyway, he spoke about Princess often and missed her every day. In 2018, so we're now talking 6 years later, unfortunately, the mother had passed away, and her phone was given to her grandson, Alex. The reason for that being important will come up in a minute. But also, sadly, in 2023, Theo, the owner, passed away as well, which is sad. So then the following year, a day before Greek Easter, so we're now talking 2024, and the dog went missing in 2014, so we're 10 years later. So a day before Greek Easter, it happened to be the grandson's birthday, and they were all the family was really sad that this was the first Easter when they were without Theo, and Theo was a real spoiler of everyone, especially the grandson, and of course the mother would be missed as well. But during that day, Alex's birthday, they got a phone call on that same phone that was the mother's phone. Now, she was the second contact, remember?
Yep.
And they said it was from a vet claiming they had a dog called Princess, and they thought it was a phone scam. But they decided to follow it up, and within the hour, they were at the vet clinic in tears to bring home a part of Theo and the mother for this special day tomorrow, the Greek Easter. And they confirmed it was Princess, and she'd been missing for 10 years. She was found by a support worker, actually, and a bit the worse for wear, but 10 years later, she's back in that loving home and being nurtured back to health. She's now 12 years old. So, what an amazing story that is. And
I know.
Incredible how it happened. And we have had, I recall once we had the police ringing us to find out the name of a Labrador who was found in a golf course, because these are pretty sad stories, but the person that was walking it was an elderly man, and he died of a heart attack on the golf course. Had no identification on him, and so they were able to identify the man through the dog that was with him at the time.
That is incredible.
Yeah, so, and we do get stories from. We had one, well, probably more than one, but one that comes to mind is a dog that ended up in Perth that was from Sydney, about 2 years later. So someone's obviously just given it a ride across the Nullarbor.
Yeah.
And then, surfaces, thousands of kilometres away. It's phenomenal, some of these.
It's one of those things where I hope one day we have the ability to be able to communicate with our pets, because Lord knows some of the stories that those dogs would have as to what they've been doing in that time frame. You would sit there and think to yourself, this is probably the best movie I would have ever seen.
Yeah.
At the moment, we can only extrapolate, but I tell you what, the dog that had been gone for 10 years, that'd be like a Netflix series, without a doubt. But it's amazing. Like, it's so good that he got to go home to his original family.
Oh, yeah.
And just thank God, I suppose in that instance, whatever had happened to him previously, whoever didn't want him anymore, so there was no argument over. I don't know what I would do if I had to argue with someone about having to get my pugs back. Like, it would kill me. It would absolutely kill me. So I can only imagine what some people have to go through when they're in that situation where it's been such a long period of time and you've got, I mean, like Lucky Dog having two families that love them so much they want to keep them, and then you've got to make that decision as to who it is that definitely need to have some sort of visitation right process going on there. And I don't think the sitting in the middle and being on either end of the room's going to work.
No. And spare a thought for our staff in that situation because
Oh, Lord.
There's this tension
Push
of
and pull, yes.
who's going to have it, and we can't, obviously, with one of our primary focuses is privacy, so we can't give your details to someone else, and then World War III breaks out, so then we're refusing to give so-and-so the details of where their pet is. And, you can imagine the abuse that sometimes is thrown at the staff, and all they're doing is just following legislation and securing privacy for any individual,
Yes.
and oh man, that's probably one of our worst situations that the girls have to deal with. Well, they're not all girls that the staff have to deal with. So it's really, really difficult.
But the positive about the entire thing is that the car system is doing what it's meant to do, which is reuniting families, pugs or any other pet, with their family, and hopefully as quickly as possible. I mean, as you were saying, some of these are like, 20 minutes or something, and then another one is like 10 years later. It's just amazing. Definitely has faith for me that if anything ever happened to my rat bags, that somebody would look at them and go, "You are too high maintenance. I'm going to take you down to the vet and send you back to the crazy pug lady that obviously owns you."
And that's too much of a burden to carry on.
I cannot deal with your neediness right now.
Get away from me.
So the other thing is you have an app, so you can, like, it's not only do you have the website, but you also have an app that's available on both Apple and Google. That has all of your pet details in there. So it really is quite, I didn't realize it, so I only downloaded it the other day so I could have a look when I got the email saying, "Hey, your details still correct," and all those sort of things. Do you want to quickly run us through the app and then the difference between sort of what is the baseline and then what is the very important pet additions?
Oh, right. So, well, the app is sort of essentially really just giving you access to the website. So you use the same login that you would for the website. So it's essentially just being able to do your normal authorized login through your phone. It's not a super fancy app or anything like that. It's just a practical way of accessing your data when you need to, or you might be interstate or anything like that. So that it's essentially there just as a service type thing. But we do, we realize that we are actually, despite the fact that the vet's chosen the register for you, there's a lot of stuff that we can do for pet owners a little bit more. And there's a few things that we offer as an extra service. So the VI pet service is actually something where you can add an image, your pet photo. Now that sounds very kind of, are you kidding? Why would I do that? But, if you would be amazed at the number of breed descriptions that we have on the database.
Imagine.
And so, what someone thinks is a lab cross is a Kelpie something, and so you can't beat an image, if you're sort of saying, this is my dog to a council worker, this is my dog here, have you got this dog, not ringing them and saying, have you got a lab cross there or something like that. So there's some real practical reasons, not just gimmicky reasons for having your photo, your pet's photo on there. Then also we can link it to your vaccination, so you can remind yourself when your dog needs to be vaccinated or wormed. And I know vets do that as well, so that's fine. But this is just kind of a self-managed thing.
Yep.
You can list, any vital health issues, so you can have some medical history involved there. So, if one of your pugs, Donna, is a diabetic, and someone takes it to a vet clinic, that vet clinic can then scan the dog and immediately they will also see that, hey, this dog's a diabetic. So they'll be aware
They need to do
straight away
something straight
that
away.
something needs to be monitored. Yeah. So there's those. And then we also send out area alerts. So the software is able to, we feed into it any disease issues that we're made aware of. So there's a service, a great service that's provided, Paws for Purpose, and they will actually notify vets of parvo outbreaks, parvovirus outbreaks, and we actually use that data, feed it into the database, and so anyone in that area on our database will get an email alert or an SMS alert saying, if your dog's in that area, that just be aware that there's parvovirus and make sure that vaccinations are up to date and that sort of thing. So lots of other additional things, in that VI Pets service. And we're thinking of new things all the time. Also, if your dog gets lost, we link you to all sorts of different things that you can use to help try and find the dog if they haven't been picked up and taken to a vet clinic. Now, there's a couple of other things that we do charge for, which I, in my ancient vet sort of philosophy, thought that's never going to be popular, and that's a pet
Oh,
portrait. A pet portrait. So,
that one I didn't see.
we have two different or three different versions, I think, maybe now, but it's two different versions, I think. So one's just a stamp. Oh no, three. Sorry, we can do something fancy with just the photo of your dog and set that up as a portrait. Then we can have a digital remastering of that as a portrait. But then the ultimate is the masterpiece, the pet masterpiece, which is done by, we've got some artists that use digital technology and that sort of thing to draw or paint an image of, and they're amazing. They're so well done.
I've got a friend that does them for all of mine, and it's incredible.
Oh, well, a couple of them, I had one of our mastiffs done, and oh gosh, it's just, it was a spitting image. It's just a beautiful thing. But I said, there's no way that's going to happen. No one's going to do that. No one's going to spend money doing that. But I was just blown away, the number of people that do it. Yep. Yeah. So there's a few extra things that's more a pay for service sort of thing. But, that's in addition to what we said. The basic service is free for the life of the animal. But those things you can pay for if you want to do that.
The awesome extras. Right. So how do people find you? So other than using the pet, I've forgotten the name again already.
Pet address.
Yeah, pet address for their chip. If they wanted to have a look at cars and all the other services and obviously keep up to date with things that are going on, how do they find you?
Yeah. So the easiest way is to go to the website, and because we did set this up a long, long time ago, we've got a very simple, easy one. So it's car.com.au, car.com.au, and everything's there. We've got forms that you can use if you want to use forms. If you've got a pet on our register, then I would recommend that you get an authorised login, and so you can set that up on the website, and then you can access your own pet's data and update it yourself at any time. So that's the best way to get to us. But we always have staff online 24 hours a day. So we have a dedicated after hours service, and we have staff that just literally do that. So they take on the phone answering from 6 o'clock in the morning till 8:30 the next day. Sorry, 6 o'clock at night till 8:30 a.m. the next morning. So you always have a person to talk to, which is kind of critical.
When you're upset, yes.
Yeah, and you can access the data through a login 24 hours a day without any drama. But if there's something that you need, essentially that after our services isn't for updating your details or anything like that. It's just strictly for reuniting lost pets. So, but that's available as well. So you can access that, or you can ring us if you need some help during the day in setting some of these things up. Some people aren't familiar with some of the electronic media and that sort of thing, so we can just help do that for you or assist you in setting that up. So you can ring us on a phone number that's. Do I give out the phone number?
Yeah, you can, and I will make sure it's in the podcast
So
notes as well.
So we're based in Victoria, and it's 039 706 3187. And although as I say, we're based in Victoria, we cover the whole country. Doesn't matter where you are, so we'll be able to help.
Awesome. And if I remember correctly, your Facebook and Instagram?
Yeah, we've got Facebook and Instagram pages as well. So you can all just search Central Elm Records and you'll find that. And we've got on YouTube. That's where you'll find the Rainbow Bridge video.
Yes, I'm going to look for that this afternoon.
Yes, have a box of tissues with you.
Forewarned is forearmed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Doug. I really do appreciate it. It's been absolutely fantastic learning a little bit more. As I said, having been a superficial cars user, it has been really good to get to know all the extra things that are available, and more importantly, all the really nice reunion stories.
Oh, that's great. Well, we're always trying to do better. We're sort of, our tag is that, your dog or your pet's more than just a microchip number, and that's critical to us. So we're constantly updating software and adding new features and that. So we're about to, this year, towards the end of the year, we'll have a whole new interface on the website. So it'll be a lot different, but be hopefully more efficient and be easy to use and that sort of thing as well. So we're always thinking about those sort of things. So we're hoping that we can just keep providing a good service for everyone.
No, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Donna.
Thankfully, other than losing Charles at Puggy Playgroup for 10 minutes one time, I've never had to live through the anxiety and stress of losing a pug and never seeing them again. I can only imagine how that must feel for a parent. So knowing that Rosie and Kenji are microchipped and that it significantly increases the likelihood of their safe return to Andrew and I within hours of them going missing, it really does take a load off my mind, especially when you consider that the Central Animal Registry has reunited over 2.8 million pets over the last 36 years alone. Have you ever experienced the temporary loss of your puggy? I wouldn't be surprised if their microchip was what got them home to you safely. We'd love to hear all about it over in our Facebook group, the Pug Life Show Podcast. If you're not a member of the group, I invite you to join now, and whilst you're there, let us know what you think of the podcast. We love getting feedback, and it helps make sure that we do better for you every season. Plus, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out on the next episode. And while you're at it, leave us a review. It only takes a couple of seconds to give us a 5-star review, and it goes a long way to helping other pug Pawrents find us. Rosie, Kenji and I hope that you will join us again soon. So have a pawsome week, and humans, be generous with the snackies.